the Simpleton Review Podcast featuring Nate, Charlie, and Lemuel. This is the Simple Review, simple reviews for simple people, and we are the most simple people of all. I am Nate.
I am Charlie, and I'm simple number 2.
I'm Lemon. I guess I'm Simpleton number 3.
Sweet. You know what we're going to do? We're going to make shirts that say that. Simpleton 1, Simpleton 2, and Simpleton 3. That would be freaking awesome, right? It'd be like thing 1 and thing 2 and it'd be awesome. That would make your wife
I'm gonna look like I'm wearing a dress.
The cat. Yeah. That would make your wife the cat in the hat. Don't tell her I said that.
She wouldn't even know.
What? What did you say?
I'm not sure she'd even know what that means.
Are you saying your wife has never read The Cat in the Hat?
I'm not sure sometimes, honestly.
Okay, well, that explains a lot. No, okay, so anyway.
Probably not seen Mr. Rogers either, at least on television.
Oh, that'd be bad. Yeah, so speaking of Mr. Rogers, this week's episode is going to feature our review of It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, I think is the name of it. And that features Tom Hanks, not Tom Cruise. I said before we started recording that it was Tom Cruise playing Fred Rogers. And then I said, you know what, that would be terrifying. That would be the premise of a new horror movie. Tom Cruise playing Fred Rogers. But no, it was Tom Hanks who played Fred Rogers. And there, quite frankly, is nobody else in Hollywood that would even be remotely capable of playing Fred Rogers, in my opinion.
Close.
Yeah.
No, except for maybe Ryan Reynolds. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. That is a joke. Okay, that's a joke. All right. How about Chris Pratt? No. Okay.
Einstein.
Okay. So A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. If anybody doesn't know, the movie is about Fred Rogers, who strikes up. It's actually about a journalist who works for, I think it's Vanity Fair or something like that. What is it? Oh, Esquire, right. And he is chosen to do a write-up on Fred Rogers, but he's kind of an investigative reporter, and so everything he does is, he wants to find some sort of expose. And so he kind of goes, quote-unquote, after Fred Rogers to try to find some dirt on the guy. And he doesn't have the best of relationships with his father, and that comes out in the movie. And so the movie is basically him striking up this very unlikely friendship with Mr. Rogers and how it helps him heal with his relationship with his dad. It's loosely, from what I understand, very loosely based on the true story of this actual reporter who wrote this piece for Esquire. In fact, most of the stuff that happens in the movie, from what I understand, did not happen. But the journalist was okay with the way they did the movie, because I think he thinks it portrayed Fred Rogers as accurately, and him as accurately as it could. But most of the elements, I guess, were fairly false from what I understand. What did you guys think of A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood?
Oh, that was definitely an awesome movie. I liked the way they took time to slowly show you each person, and kind of in the effect that the show would have.
Yeah.
Was that each step had something to unfold for you. It's taking you a step deeper. It's kind of like the way a child learns.
Yeah.
So in the way Fred Rogers would do it, and they kind of unfolded the movie in the same way.
Yeah.
So it made it really easy to watch.
Yeah, it was really easy to
Daniel?
watch.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I liked the way how it would laid it out, kind of like an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was, where it starts off with him walking in, doing the whole theme song and all that sort of stuff. The things that stand up to me the most is some of those dreams. I have to admit, they were a little creepy.
Yeah, the dream sequences.
Yeah, after he first meets Mr. Rogers and he has that dream sequence of 3-second scenes, that's pretty spooky. And then when he goes onto the show,
oh yeah,
that got weird.
I thought it was very interesting how the movie started. Like you said, it starts out like you're watching an episode of Mr. Rogers, right? And Mr. Rogers comes in, takes off his shoes, says, "Hi, neighbor," all that kind of stuff. And then it opens up with the movie being in a square format, like old TV. Yeah. I thought that was really cool, right? So you can always, what's that?
Yeah, it was really classy.
Yeah. So you could always tell when it was supposed to be kind of like the TV show, and then when it was actually just the normal dialogue, the normal story going on, because they would flip to the 16:9 screen size when it was just the kind of the normal movie. But if it was more, oriented towards that movie universe, then it was that square format. And I thought that was really fascinating how they kind of played that. And it was really easy to see, like on my big screen, it really made a big effect on there. But I'll tell you, it really got sad right away, when he opens up the little windows and he say, "This is my friend."
Yeah.
Whatever he says. Yeah, what do you think? Go ahead.
His voice got so solemn all of a sudden. It scared me a little bit. I'm pretty sure
That scared you?
I was like, is this going to be... Because it kind of felt like, to me, they were going to make it seem like it would paint Fred Rogers in like a negative light for a minute, but as the movie progressed, you kind of realize it's not about that at all.
Oh, good. For a second there, I thought you thought that he was going to come out of the movie at you with a red cardigan and start stabbing you, or maybe he was like... Maybe he was like Ash from Evil Dead, and he was going to start saying, "Give me some sugar, baby." I don't know.
Get the chainsaw arm going.
Right. All right. Who wants some? Who wants some? This is my boomstick. Can you imagine Mr. Rogers saying, "This is my boomstick"?
I would not be intimidated.
Now that's a mental picture I want in my mind right here. This is my boomstick. Okay.
Can you say boom?
Can you say boomstick, kids? Yes.
I thought you could.
Can you say, remember, shop smart, shop S-Mart? Okay. All right. All right. I like the fact that, Hanks didn't push the role, right? I mean, he wasn't like, he didn't like totally try to completely imitate Fred Rogers, but he did enough where you got drawn in, you were sucked in, and you believed from the very beginning that he was Fred Rogers.
Well, and the part that he did right was that he used those like emotional silences. He used silence and like stillness, because if you watch a Mr. Rogers shows, there's just points where he just stops and everything like focuses in a sec and then focuses out and then it's going again. And Tom Hanks nailed it. He just nailed it.
Yeah, he did. I thought it was really good. What was I going to say? Any other points that you guys thought of the movie or some interesting parts that stuck out to you? Nothing. Okay. It was a great movie, guys. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for listening to the podcast.
The transitions.
Oh.
I really liked how they used the models of the cities and stuff for the transitions.
Right.
Instead of like doing a typical cityscape.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay, Mr. Millennial. Do you know that's exactly what they did in the original Mr. Rogers?
Well, yeah, that's why I thought it was interesting.
All right, yeah. I mean, that was what's so cool. And not only that, but like the credit sequence at the very beginning of the movie, that's the exact same font that's used in the show, in the Mr. Rogers show. I was like, I mean, they nailed all those little details. Yeah, I thought it was really cool that way. Anything else?
I like the interrelations between like the bodyguard and his wife, everybody else would it's like, no, that's Fred. You don't understand.
Yeah.
You think you're trying to find something out there that's different, but no, all of these are him.
Yeah, right.
When he shows the tiger, that's him. These are all him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny, Lemuel, you talked about the dream sequences. That's one thing I wrote down. I said that was pretty fascinating and kind of weird, but maybe a little scary for little kids if they wanted to watch it. But I really liked the scene. Excuse me. My voice is dying, people. Hold on. That's what happens when you have acid reflux. Okay.
There's something.
The scene where Joanne, his wife, was talking about how Fred was, and that he was human, but he tried to do what he did, and it was a conscious effort, right? And how she talks about how he's nice to everybody that way because he's made a conscious decision to be that way. Of course, Fred's life was, really driven by his faith and by his Christianity, and so he really had that idea on how to treat people. And that whole scene where he's, kneeling by his bed, and while Joanne talked about the fact that he prayed for every person that he's ever met by name. Yeah. How freaking incredible is that? That is the kind of person I want to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I just was like, man, that's Christianity in a nutshell. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Rogers is an American hero, and the thing is, most people don't realize it's because he was emanating the person he had faith in.
Yep.
He didn't get bogged down by the details of religion or religiosity or any of that kind of stuff. He lived out what he saw Jesus doing, and that's how he lived his life, and that's why he, like that one scene where all of the people on set are getting really ticked off because Mr. Rogers is spending all that time talking to that little kid who's beating him up with a sword. Right?
All of a sudden, the kid turns because he
Yeah.
realizes how true his love is.
Yep. But did you catch the fact that the director, whoever said that he'd been talking to that kid for 45 minutes?
Yeah.
It took them that long for that kid to finally respond to him.
Yeah.
But he gave time. And that brings me to the other point where they're sitting in that restaurant. Oh my gosh. And when he said, let's just do a minute of silence, I'm like, they're not going to do it. No. Are they really going to do a minute of silence? A serious, oh my God. And they did. They did a whole 60 seconds. And we're sitting here watching it as a family. And Abby turns around to me and says, awkward. I'm like, that's the whole point.
The intention of that scene.
Right?
Listen to Mr. Rogers too. I thought that's like an important kind of thing to note. Is everybody in the restaurant realizes we should be quiet right now.
Yeah, the whole restaurant is silent. You could hear the birds chirping. And then he breaks the fourth wall, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers stops looking at the reporter and he turns and he looks at us. And he looks into your soul. Okay? That's when it got uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when he started ripping out my souls like entrails onto the ground. It's terrible. I'm telling you. But I want to be like Fred Rogers. That's all I mean, that's the biggest thing I got out of this movie, was I want to be like Fred Rogers. It was such a great man. And that scene where he kneels down and he says something quietly to the reporter's dad.
Yeah.
And then the kid says, well, the guy says, what did you say to my dad? And he says, like, well, I just told him to pray for me because I figured he's closer to God than the rest of us. I don't know. I mean, some of see, that's the thing is that most of the quotes from the movie, even if the movie isn't necessarily factually accurate in a lot of ways that it portrayed things, most of the quotes and most of the things that he said are real. Like even the comment about his vegetarianism and how he just can't bring to eat anything that has a mother. That's an actual quote from Fred Rogers. He said that at one point. So most of those quotes are real. And so there's that one point though where he's talking to the reporter and he's asking him, what happens when you get mad? How do you, and he talks about, well, there's those keys at the bottom of the piano and you bang on them, bang, bam, bum, 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 it's kind of a thing. What did you think of that whole conversation?
And now, are you talking about the one where they're in the hotel room and he's talking?
Well, they're in his apartment house, yeah.
Or in his apartment house,
the stuffed animals and stuff.
So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool because it was kind of like the swaying point for him. I mean, he was going to rebel anyway. I mean, he wasn't buying it,
right?
He wasn't anywhere near it. So I think it was, but he had to hear it,
right?
That's
so. What do you think was the significance of at the very end of the movie? The last scene of that movie is him wrapping up that episode of Mr. Rogers, right? Which is interesting. The whole movie wraps up with him wrapping up his show on that for that episode. But he goes over to the piano, and what does he do?
Beats out the bottom chords.
Yeah, he bangs on those bottom. What do you think that signified?
I think it just said he still frustrated as any one of us.
Yeah,
knows his own foibles. He knows what he saw on camera that nobody else saw.
Yeah.
It's like his performance wasn't exactly where it should have been, or maybe he said something he felt like he shouldn't or something. One
of the things I know about the story is that it was pretty closer to the end of his life, right? And so Mr. Rogers died of stomach cancer. So he retired, and I think about a year to 2 years later, he passed away. He lived a very healthy lifestyle. He was an avid swimmer. They showed that scene with him swimming in the pool. He did that on a daily basis. I can't remember how many laps, but he swam. He swam a lot during that time frame. Well, his whole life he swam a lot. But he was always, if you notice throughout the whole movie, he's holding his side. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't notice that. I wasn't paying that close attention.
Yeah, he was holding his side, and then he goes and he bangs on those keys. So I'm wondering, and this is just conjecture, I don't know if it's true or not, if that scene was kind of signifying the fact that he knew he was dying and he was kind of pissed off about it.
Could very well be.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Especially if they're coming to the show right after the episode or the scenes where, you know, his dad had just, the reporter's dad had just died.
Yeah.
So good continuity.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
that's true. Huh. Yeah, it's interesting. So I really like the movie. I mean, that would be where I would leave it at. So I guess to wrap this episode up, Lemuel, Mr. Millennial, Mr. maybe not so influenced by Mr. Rogers.
True.
What's your rating?
I'd probably put it at a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Good. Okay, good. Charlie?
Me, I'm going to put it as 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. And contingency that you see the documentary.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
And it's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? So, yeah, definitely worth a spin too. Moves in a totally different pace and has real Fred Rogers on there and a lot of different things that he went through to get the show going and everything else.
Okay.
So
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Well, I would give it 5 out of 5 too. I don't give 5 out of 5 ratings very easily. I'm very picky about my movies, as Lemuel could probably attest to. But what do you say? I didn't hear you.
He said he was agreeing with you. Totally.
Okay, yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, yeah, I am. I'm picky about my movies, but I thought just the way they structured it, the way the cinematography was done, the way the storyline was laid out, it's a very simple movie, right? It's one of those movies that don't get made much anymore because it's dialogue driven. There's a very simple structure to it. It's very easy scene one or act 1, act 2, act 3 type of a structure. And it's very, very simple. There's no cars blowing up. There's no, people dying or strange darkness to it or even comedic elements. There's not much. It's just a simple story. And I think they nailed it. The acting jobs were great. I thought Tom Hanks did a fantastic job. I can't remember the name of the gentleman who played the reporter's dad, but I think he did a great job too, playing his dad. Even the guy who played the reporter, which I don't know if I've ever seen him in other stuff. I thought he did a good job too. What do you guys think? Did you hear me?
Yeah, we heard you. Yeah, he did a really good job.
Yeah, remember, we're on an audio podcast, which means you have to speak, okay? All right. Well, do you guys have anything else to say about this movie before we wrap up this episode?
No. I think we're good.
I like the music a lot. That is one more thing I have to point out, is the music was really cool.
It was. And very reminiscent to what you would hear if you were watching a Mr. Rogers episode. That's what I thought was really good. Yeah. I mean, it's very jazzy. Mr. Rogers was big into jazz. In fact, he had a music education. He graduated with a music degree, so he was very big on music. And if you remember, Charlie, you're my age. You probably grew up watching Mr. Rogers just as much as I did. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. But
Probably
he was. What's that?
Probably not. We didn't do that much. Well, we did TV, but it was all suited for even I don't know, more cartoony.
Oh, gotcha. Well, Mr. Rogers was very music oriented. In fact, I think the first time I ever heard jazz was probably on Mr. Rogers' show. I mean, that's how much music mattered to him. And I remember being 5 or 6 years old and hearing jazz for the first time, and Mr. Rogers go, "What the crap is this? Turn it off. Where is my Baby Shark song?" No, that's not true.
All right.
That's not true. Back in the day, it was probably Flash Beagle by Snoopy or something stupid like that. I don't know.
Flash Beagle, yes. I
have that record. I'm just saying. Yeah, maybe next time we'll review that record and I'll make you guys listen to it.
Stop the pain! Stop the pain!
All right, we better sign off for tonight. Thank you guys for showing up and helping me review this movie tonight.
All right, yeah. Thanks for having us on.
You bet. Hey, this has been the Simpleton Review Podcast featuring Nate, Charlie, and Lamb. I am Nate.
I'm Charlie.
I'm Lem, Simpleton number 3.
Yes, Simpleton number 3. We're saying have a great night. Wish you the best. We'll talk to you next month on the Simpleton Review.